In the heart of an ancient forest, shrouded in the thick mist that seemed to whisper secrets of a time long past, stood a house. It was not just any house, but one that bore the weight of countless stories, some whispered in hushed tones, others screamed into the night, all of them dark and twisted. The House of Whispers, as it came to be known, had stood for centuries, its origins lost to the ravages of time. Its walls, blackened by the touch of fire, told of a great blaze that once consumed it, yet it stood defiant against the elements, refusing to succumb to the destruction that had sought to claim it. The locals avoided the path that led to its door, a door that never seemed to close properly, always slightly ajar as if inviting the curious or the foolish to enter. It was said that those who crossed its threshold were never seen again, their fate sealed by the house that hungered for souls. On a night when the moon hid behind the clouds, fearing to cast its light on such an accursed place, a group of friends found themselves drawn to the house. Their laughter and bravado echoed through the trees, a stark contrast to the silence that enveloped the forest. As they entered the house, the door creaked shut behind them, the sound of final farewell to the world they knew. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of decay, and the shadows seemed to move of their own accord, stretching and twisting into forms that defied explanation. The friends, once so bold, now clung to each other, their eyes wide with fear as they navigated the labyrinthine corridors, each turn revealing horrors more unspeakable than the last. Whispers filled their ears, voices of those who had come before them, begging for release, for an end to their eternal torment. In a room at the heart of the house, where the darkness was deepest, they found the source of the whispers. A book, its pages bound in human skin, inked in blood that still seemed fresh. It was the history of the house, written by the damned, a record of every soul claimed by its insatiable appetite. One by one, the friends were consumed by the house, their screams adding to the cacophony of voices that now called it home. The last to fall was the one who had led them there, his final act to scrawl his name in the book, sealing his fate as another whisper in the House of Horrors. And so the house stands, waiting for the next unwary traveler to heed its call, to join the chorus of whispers that is never silenced, the legacy of the house in the forest that feeds on fear and despair. The forest reclaimed the silence that the house's malevolent presence had momentarily disturbed. Yet, in the village nearby, whispers of the house's latest feast began to stir. The villagers, long accustomed to the disappearances, cast wary glances towards the woods, their eyes filled with a fear that spoke of an understanding far deeper than any outsider could fathom. As dawn broke, a lone figure emerged from the forest's edge. It was an old woman, known to the villagers as the Seer of the Woods. Her eyes, milky white and unseeing, seemed to look beyond the veil of reality. She walked with purpose towards the house, her steps guided by a force unseen. The villagers watched, holding their breath as she approached the door that had claimed so many. With a voice that echoed like the wind through the trees, she spoke an incantation, her words ancient and powerful. The house shuddered, its timbers groaning as if in pain, and for a moment, it seemed as though the very earth would swallow it whole. But the house would not yield so easily. From its depths, a darkness surged forth, a shadow that sought to envelop the seer. Yet, she stood firm, her incantation growing louder, more insistent. The battle of wills between the seer and the house was a spectacle that would be etched in the memories of those who witnessed it for generations to come. In the end, it was the seer who prevailed. The shadow receded, and the house fell silent once more. But the victory was not without cost. The seer, her energy spent, collapsed at the threshold, her life force ebbing away. With her last breath, she whispered a warning to the villagers: the house sleeps, but does not die. Beware its awakening. The villagers, honoring the seer's sacrifice, erected a barrier around the house, a ring of salt and sacred symbols meant to contain its evil. They spoke of the house only in hushed tones, reminder of the darkness that lurked at the edge of their world. Years passed, and the story of the house became a legend, a tale to frighten children into obedience. But legends have a way of being reborn, and in the heart of the forest, the house waited, its hunger undiminished, for the day it would whisper once more. Decades turned to centuries, and the legend of the House of Whispers grew ever more elaborate with each retelling. The barrier erected by the villagers stood the test of time, a silent sentinel guarding against the malevolence within. Yet, as the world outside changed, the forest and the house were slowly forgotten, swallowed by the relentless march of progress that in the modern age. The forest was rediscovered, now seen through the lens of opportunity. A wealthy developer, enticed by the untouched land, began plans to clear the forest and erect a new vision of the future. The ancient trees fell to the ground, one by one, their cries unheard by the machines that tore through their roots. As the developer's men approached the barrier, they scoffed at the superstitious symbols and the ring of salt that lay broken and scattered. They crossed the threshold with ease, the warnings of old dismissed as mere fairy tales. The house, once hidden by the forest's embrace, now stood exposed, its dark aura undiminished by the passage of time. The first night, the workers heard the whispers. Soft at first, like the rustling of leaves, but growing ever louder, more insistent. They spoke of promises and secrets, of power and riches beyond imagination. The men were drawn to the house, their minds ensnared by the seductive voices. One by one, they entered the house, their flashlights casting long shadows on the walls that seemed to absorb the light. The house welcomed them, its hunger awakened after so long a slumber. The air grew cold, and the darkness closed in, snuffing out the beams of their flashlights as easily as one might blow out a candle. By morning, the developer's men were gone, their equipment abandoned where they had left it. The developer, enraged by the delay, ventured into the forest himself, determined to raise the house and all it stood for. He found the house waiting, its door open wide, as if in greeting. The whispers called to him, promising him the world in exchange for his soul. But the developer was a man of no faith, in man or spirit, and he laughed at the voices that sought to sway him. His laughter died in his throat as he stepped inside. The house changed before his eyes, the walls stretching upwards, the corridors twisting into impossible geometries. He was lost in an instant, the house claiming him as its own, his screams echoing for eternity. The House of Whispers stands still, a monument to the hubris of man. The barrier is restored, stronger than before, but the villagers know it is only a matter of time before the house calls again. For the house is hunger, and hunger is eternal. The barrier held, but the whispers of the House of Whispers seeped into the dreams of those who lived on the fringes of the forest. The house, though quiescent, was never truly silent. It called to the dreamers, the artists, the madmen, those who walked the line between reality and the realm of nightmares. A painter, known for his works that captured the essence of the human soul, became obsessed with the legend. His canvases, once vibrant with color, turned dark, each stroke driven by a compulsion he could not explain. He painted the house in every shade of night, but no painting could satisfy the vision that haunted him. Compelled by a force beyond his understanding, he ventured into the forest, his eyes filled with the same milky white as the seer's had been centuries before. The villagers found his paintings scattered along the path, each one more disturbing than the last, leading like breadcrumbs to the house that hungered. The painter entered the house, his mind alight with visions of glory and madness. He painted the walls with murals that came to life, scenes of horror that moved and breathed. The house fed on his creativity, on the terror that his paintings inspired. As the years passed, the house became a living gallery of nightmares, each room a testament to the painter's descent into madness. The barrier weakened, the sacred symbols corrupted by the dark art within. The whispers grew louder, calling to those who would listen. It was then that a young girl, innocent and pure of heart, heard the whispers. Unlike the others, she heard not promises of power, but cries of pain, the souls of the house begging for release. She approached the barrier, her heart filled with a compassion that the house had not known for centuries. With a touch, she broke the barrier, her innocence acting as a balm to the tortured spirits within. The house resisted, its darkness lashing out, but it could not withstand the purity of her intent. The murals faded, the screams of the damned quieted, and for the first time in its long and terrible history, the house knew peace. The girl walked through the house, her presence a light in the darkness. She spoke to the souls, offering them release from their bondage. One by one, they left, their whispers turning to sighs of relief as they passed on to whatever lay beyond. The house, emptied of its horrors, collapsed in on itself, a final thunderous groan marking the end of its reign of terror. The forest reclaimed the land, the memory of the house fading like a bad dream in the light of dawn. And so the story of the House of Whispers ends, not with screams, but with a whisper of hope, a reminder that even the darkest of legacies can be overcome by the light of a single pure heart. As the years passed, the land where the House of Whispers once stood became a place of pilgrimage for those touched by the tale of the young girl's bravery. The forest flourished, the air filled with the songs of birds and the rustling of leaves, as if nature itself was celebrating the house's demise. The story of the house became a legend, a cautionary tale of the darkness that lies in the hearts of men and the light of purity that can overcome it. Parents told their children of the brave girl who faced the house, and her story inspired countless tales of heroism and courage. But the essence of the house, its insatiable hunger, was not so easily vanquished. It lingered in the land, a shadow waiting for the chance to rise again. And rise it did, not as a structure of wood and stone, but as an idea, a concept that took root in the minds of those who heard the story. The legend of the House of Whispers spread far and wide, crossing oceans and continents. It found its way into books, movies, and songs, each iteration feeding the shadow, giving it strength. The house had become immortal, a part of the collective consciousness, a symbol of fear and fascination. And somewhere, in a place beyond time and space, the spirits of those who had been claimed by the house watched. They saw the house reborn in the minds of the living, and they wept, for they knew that the house would never truly die as long as it lived in the stories of mankind. The young girl, now an old woman, felt the stirrings of the house's return. She knew that her time was coming to an end, but her legacy would live on. She passed down her knowledge to a new generation, teaching them the power of purity and the strength of a kind heart. The house, now a legend, waits in the shadows, its whispers heard in the quiet moments before sleep. It is a reminder that some things never truly die, that they live on in the stories we tell and the fears we harbor. And perhaps, one day, the house will find a way to return, not as a building, but as a whisper in the night, a chill down your spine, a fear unexplained. The whispers of the House of Whispers had ceased, and the world moved on, the legend nothing more than a tale to be told around campfires. The forest where the house once stood became a sanctuary, a place where people sought solace in the beauty of nature, unaware of the darkness that once dwelled there generations past, and the story of the house was all but forgotten, relegated to the pages of obscure history books and the occasional retelling by an elderly villager. The land healed, and the barrier that once contained the house's evil crumbled to dust. Its purpose served, but the essence of the house, the kernel of truth at the heart of the legend, was eternal. It lay dormant, biding its time, gathering strength from the fears and nightmares of those who dared to remember. Then, one fateful night, a group of teenagers, armed with nothing but their curiosity and a desire for adventure, stumbled upon the remains of the barrier. They laughed and joked, daring each other to cross the line where the salt once lay. As they did, a chill wind blew through the trees, and a faint whisper tickled their ears. It was a voice, or perhaps many voices, intertwined, speaking words that were not understood but felt, a longing, a desire, a hunger. The teenagers, feeling a sudden unease, decided to leave, but found themselves inexplicably drawn back to the spot, night after night. They began to dream of the house, of its twisting corridors and endless rooms, each dream more vivid than the last. Unbeknownst to them, they were awakening the house, giving it form not in wood and stone, but in thought and belief. The house was becoming real again, reconstructed in the collective unconscious, its foundation laid in the fertile ground of their imaginations. One by one, the teenagers succumbed to the house's influence. They disappeared, leaving behind no trace but a story, a warning that went unheeded. The house had returned, not as a place, but as an idea, a virus of the mind that spread from one person to the next, claiming them, consuming them. The old woman, the last living soul who knew the truth of the house, felt a stirring in her heart. She knew that the battle was not over, that the house would always find a way to endure. She passed away with a whisper on her lips, a prayer that someone would heed the warning and stand against the darkness. The House of Whispers lives on, not in the physical world, but in the stories we tell, the fears we share, and the darkness we harbor within. It is a reminder that some legacies are indelible, etched into the very fabric of our being, waiting for the moment to be reborn. That in the realm of thought and shadow, the House of Whispers found its new domain. No longer confined by physical boundaries, it roamed the collective unconscious, a specter of fear that latched onto the darkest corners of the human mind. The legend, now a viral thought, infected the dreams of the innocent and the guilty alike. It was no longer a place one could visit, but a presence that visited you. It whispered in the moments between wakefulness and sleep, a voice that was both alien and intimately familiar. As the house's influence grew, so did the tales of its reach. People spoke of waking from nightmares, unable to shake the feeling of being watched, of hearing whispers that seemed to come from within their own minds. The line between reality and the realm of the house blurred, and panic spread like wildfire. Psychologists and scholars debated the phenomenon, some claiming it was a mass hysteria, others insisting it was something more, something ancient and primal. The world watched in a mix of horror and fascination as the story of the house took on a life of its own. Then, from the chaos, emerged a group of dreamers, individuals who could navigate the dreamscape where the house dwelled. They called themselves the Sentinels of Sleep, and they had one goal: to confront the house in the realm of dreams and end its reign of terror. Armed with knowledge passed down from the old woman, the last true witness of the house's physical form, the Sentinels delved into the collective unconscious. They journeyed through dreams, battling the nightmares that the house conjured, each victory weakening the house's hold on the world. The final confrontation was a battle of wills, fought on a dreamscape that defied logic. The Sentinels, united in purpose, faced the house, which had taken the form of a vast, ever-changing labyrinth. At its center, the core of the house's power, a dark mirror that reflected not images, but thoughts. The Sentinels shattered the mirror, and with it, the house's power crumbled. The whispers faded, the fear dissipated, and the world awoke to a new dawn. The house was gone, its legacy reduced to a cautionary tale of the power of belief and the strength of the human spirit. But the Sentinels knew that the house was not destroyed, merely contained. It would always exist, somewhere in the depths of the human psyche, waiting for a chance to rise again. They remained vigilant, guardians of the dreamscape, ready to defend against the darkness that lurks within us all. The House of Whispers had become a silent guardian of the threshold between waking and dreaming. The Sentinels of Sleep, those brave souls who ventured into the dreamscape to confront the house, became legends in their own right, their deeds woven into the fabric of the collective unconscious. As time marched on, the house's whispers grew faint, but they never fully disappeared. They became a part of the human experience, a reminder that within each of us lies a house of whispers, filled with our own fears, desires, and secrets. In every culture, in every land, people found their own version of the house. It was a universal symbol, a construct that existed in the liminal space between myth and reality. The house was no longer a place of terror, but a place of reflection, where one could confront their innermost thoughts. The story of the house became a tool for understanding, a way to navigate the complexities of the human psyche. Therapists and healers used the legend to help their patients face their own shadows, to embrace the parts of themselves they feared the most. And so, the house served a new purpose, not as a devourer of souls, but as a mirror to the soul. It was a place where one could learn to whisper back, to engage in a dialogue with the darkness and find peace within it. The legend of the House of Whispers endures, not as a tale of horror, but as a story of hope and healing. It reminds us that even the darkest whisper can be met with courage, that within every nightmare lies the potential for growth, and that every end is simply the beginning of a new story.